Thank you for listening. This course was created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional podcasts, books, newsletters, and cool merchandise await. Let's get started. Applications have become the digital backbone of modern society. Nearly every online interaction, from banking and shopping to healthcare and entertainment, depends on applications functioning reliably and securely. Behind these applications, application programming interfaces, or APIs, enable systems to integrate, exchange data, and scale globally. Yet this complexity also multiplies the opportunities for attackers, who exploit vulnerabilities not just in the code itself, but in how applications connect with other services. Defenders face an evolving and high-stakes domain where every flaw can translate into large-scale breaches, reputational damage, or regulatory consequences. For learners, understanding application and API security is essential, as these systems form the gateways to critical business processes and sensitive personal data. To address these risks, frameworks provide shared guidance on the most common and dangerous application security issues. The OWASP Top 10 is one of the most widely used resources, cataloging recurring categories such as injection attacks, misconfiguration, and weak authentication. Specialized lists extend this work, including the OWASP Mobile Top 10, which focuses on risks specific to mobile platforms, and the OWASP API Top 10, which highlights issues related to authorization, excessive data exposure, and endpoint mismanagement. These frameworks are not simply checklists, but reflections of decades of hard-earned lessons from real-world incidents. Learners should see them as starting points that help developers, testers, and managers speak a common language about risk, aligning priorities across technical and business teams. Despite these frameworks and decades of awareness, persistent vulnerabilities continue to plague organizations. Many breaches still stem from flaws identified years earlier, showing how difficult it is to eradicate well-known weaknesses. Pressures to deliver new features quickly often mean that security is deprioritized during development, and legacy code introduces long-lasting weaknesses that are difficult to remediate. Attackers exploit these recurring patterns, targeting the same classes of vulnerabilities across industries. For learners, this persistence underscores that the challenge is not only technical but also cultural. Knowing about vulnerabilities is not enough. Organizations must create environments where security is valued, enforced, and integrated into every stage of development. SQL injection offers a striking example of such persistence. This attack, which manipulates queries to a database by injecting malicious input, has been documented for decades, yet it remains one of the most common and devastating flaws. Attackers use it to extract sensitive information, alter records, or even take full control of back-end systems. Businesses often struggle to eliminate it completely, as pressures for rapid development and reliance on legacy codebases hinder eradication. SQL injection demonstrates that many vulnerabilities persist not because solutions are unavailable, but because human, cultural, and organizational factors prevent their consistent application. Learners should see it as a reminder that technical defenses must be paired with discipline and accountability if progress is to be made. APIs have emerged as the new perimeter of enterprise security. These interfaces drive connectivity and enable machine-to-machine communication, but poorly secured APIs often provide attackers with direct entry into sensitive systems. Breaches at organizations like T-Mobile and Peloton illustrate how inadequate API protections can lead to large-scale exposures of personal data. Attackers frequently exploit excessive data exposure, weak authentication, or missing authorization controls to gain rapid access to information. Learners should recognize that while APIs are indispensable for modern business, they also create new frontiers for attack. Protecting them requires not just technical safeguards, but also careful design that anticipates misuse. API vulnerabilities arise in many familiar forms. Endpoints may return more data than is necessary, giving attackers access to sensitive fields. Authentication checks may be missing or poorly implemented, allowing unauthorized users to connect. Authorization controls are often weak or inconsistently enforced, enabling attackers to escalate privileges or access resources they should not. Exploiting these flaws is often rapid and scalable, as attackers can automate requests across thousands of endpoints. Learners should appreciate that APIs are not inherently less secure than traditional applications, but their scale and centrality to modern systems magnify the impact of flaws. Addressing these vulnerabilities requires rigorous testing, thoughtful design, and a mindset that treats APIs as critical security boundaries. Web applications themselves continue to exhibit a range of weaknesses that attackers exploit with consistency. Insecure session management allows adversaries to hijack user accounts, while weak encryption can expose sensitive information in transit or at rest. Classic issues such as cross-site scripting (XSS) and cross-site request forgery (CSRF) remain prevalent, enabling attackers to manipulate interactions or steal data by exploiting how browsers process content. These flaws highlight that web security is not just about protecting the codebase, but about understanding the complex interplay between servers, clients, and user behavior. Learners should see that every web application interaction carries implicit trust relationships, and attackers thrive when these assumptions are poorly enforced. Addressing these weaknesses requires ongoing vigilance and a willingness to revisit designs as attackers adapt. Mobile applications bring their own set of risks, often shaped by the constraints and conveniences of mobile platforms. Developers may store sensitive information insecurely on devices, leaving it exposed if the phone is lost, stolen, or compromised. Hard-coded API keys or poorly protected tokens often provide easy entry points for attackers. Weak session handling further undermines integrity, allowing attackers to impersonate users or intercept communications. The diversity of platforms and the pressure for rapid release cycles make these problems more challenging. Learners should recognize that mobile security cannot simply be an extension of web application security. It must account for platform-specific behaviors, user expectations, and the unique risks of handheld devices that operate in varied and unpredictable environments. Testing methodologies provide structured ways to discover vulnerabilities before attackers exploit them. Static Application Security Testing, or SAST, analyzes code without executing it, searching for patterns associated with common flaws. Dynamic Testing, or DAST, evaluates applications during runtime, observing their behavior under simulated attack. Interactive Testing, or IAST, blends both approaches, offering deeper visibility into how applications function in practice. More recently, Runtime Application Self-Protection, or RASP, has emerged, embedding defenses directly into applications to detect and mitigate attacks as they occur. For learners, these methods illustrate that no single approach is sufficient. Security requires combining perspectives, looking at code, behavior, and live environments to uncover weaknesses across the development and deployment lifecycle. Each testing tool brings strengths and limitations that must be understood to avoid misplaced confidence. Static testing is powerful for scanning large codebases, but often generates false positives, overwhelming developers with findings of uneven significance. Dynamic testing evaluates real-world behavior but can miss business logic flaws that attackers are quick to exploit. RASP provides protection at runtime but may introduce performance trade-offs or complicate application behavior. These limitations highlight the need for layered testing strategies rather than reliance on one method alone. Learners should understand that tools amplify human insight but cannot replace it. Effective testing requires both technical proficiency and critical evaluation of results to ensure that effort is directed where it matters most. The Secure Software Development Lifecycle, or SSDLC, provides the framework for embedding security across every phase of application creation. From initial design through coding, testing, deployment, and ongoing maintenance, security must be treated as a continuous responsibility rather than an afterthought. Threat modeling at the design stage helps anticipate how attackers might misuse features, reducing costly fixes later. Code reviews, automated testing, and secure deployment pipelines reinforce these efforts, ensuring vulnerabilities are caught before release. Yet implementing SSDLC requires more than tools and checklists. It demands cultural change. Developers, managers, and executives must value and prioritize security consistently. Learners should see SSDLC as both a technical and organizational process, one that turns secure development from an aspiration into a repeatable practice. When organizations adopt SSDLC principles, they move closer to a culture where security and innovation reinforce each other rather than compete. Instead of bolting on security controls at the end of development, teams integrate them naturally into workflows, reducing friction and improving efficiency. This shift transforms security from a bottleneck into a quality measure, aligned with business goals of reliability and trustworthiness. Learners should recognize that SSDLC is not about slowing development, but about making it sustainable. In a world where attackers exploit familiar flaws repeatedly, embedding security throughout the lifecycle is one of the most effective ways to shift from reactive defense to proactive resilience. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. The scale of application portfolios presents a daunting challenge for organizations. Enterprises often manage thousands of applications, ranging from critical customer-facing systems to obscure internal tools. With so many assets, prioritization becomes as important as detection. Internet-facing applications that handle sensitive data must be treated as the highest priority, as they represent the greatest potential impact if compromised. Business context drives these decisions, ensuring that scarce security resources are applied where risks align most closely with organizational goals. Learners should appreciate that security cannot be applied evenly across all assets. Instead, effective strategies demand thoughtful triage, balancing risk exposure, business criticality, and available resources to make the best possible use of limited capacity. The T-Mobile breaches provide a clear example of the risks associated with poorly secured APIs. Attackers exploited endpoints that returned sensitive data without adequate authentication or authorization. The scale of the breaches was magnified by weak oversight, allowing attackers to harvest large amounts of customer information. These incidents carried both reputational and financial consequences, showing that inadequate API security undermines not only technical defenses, but also customer trust and regulatory compliance. For learners, T-Mobile's experience illustrates how a failure in a single aspect of API security can cascade into systemic damage. It reinforces the idea that APIs must be treated as critical security boundaries, not just as functional connectors between systems. Peloton's API flaws offer another instructive case study. Researchers discovered that APIs allowed unauthenticated requests to retrieve user information, exposing data that should have been protected. This oversight reflected systemic misconfiguration and insufficient testing. While not as large-scale as other incidents, the exposure created reputational harm and highlighted weaknesses in oversight. For learners, the Peloton case demonstrates that even companies with strong brands and innovative products can stumble when security is not integrated into the development lifecycle. It underscores the reality that user trust is fragile, and missteps in application security can quickly erode confidence regardless of the company's broader success. A recurring issue in application and API security is the assumptions developers make about client behavior. Many APIs are designed with the belief that clients will use them as intended, without considering the potential for manipulation. Attackers exploit these assumptions by sending malformed or chained requests that bypass expected flows. Parameters may be altered in ways the designers never envisioned, revealing sensitive information or enabling privilege escalation. Threat modeling directly addresses this blind spot by asking teams to consider what could go wrong scenarios during design. Learners should see that attackers thrive where assumptions replace verification, and that rigorous design practices can preempt many of the flaws that persist in applications today. Threat modeling represents a practice that goes beyond tools and frameworks, embedding an adversarial mindset into development. By analyzing potential attackers, their goals, and their methods, teams can anticipate misuse before systems are released. Threat modeling is not about predicting every possible exploit, but about broadening the perspective of designers and developers. It makes explicit the ways in which features could be misused and builds safeguards before code is written. For learners, this practice highlights the importance of shifting left addressing vulnerabilities earlier in the lifecycle rather than waiting for testing or post-release patches. Threat modeling equips teams to think like attackers, transforming security from reaction into prevention. Bug bounty programs complement internal practices by inviting external researchers to identify flaws in applications. These programs harness the creativity and persistence of the broader security community, often uncovering real-world attack techniques that automated scanners or internal teams may miss. While they require careful management, bug bounties provide valuable external perspective and help validate internal defenses. They also create constructive relationships between organizations and independent researchers, aligning incentives for discovering and disclosing vulnerabilities responsibly. For learners, bug bounty programs show that security benefits from openness and collaboration. No matter how skilled an internal team may be, external perspectives can reveal blind spots and strengthen resilience. Penetration testing plays a vital role in reinforcing application and API security. Unlike automated scans or code reviews, penetration tests simulate adversary behavior under controlled conditions, probing for weaknesses that may only emerge in realistic attack scenarios. These assessments uncover vulnerabilities that tools often miss, such as complex logic flaws or chained exploits that mirror real-world tactics. Penetration testing does not replace automated approaches but complements them, offering an additional layer of assurance that defenses hold up under pressure. Learners should understand penetration testing as a means of validation, an exercise that grounds theory in practice and provides organizations with confidence in the resilience of their systems. API gateways and management platforms provide central points of control for securing machine-to-machine communication. By enforcing authentication, authorization, and policy rules at scale, gateways help ensure that APIs adhere to consistent standards. They can apply rate limits to prevent abuse, detect anomalies in traffic, and provide organizations with much-needed visibility into API flows. However, gateways are not a cure-all. If underlying API design is flawed or misconfigured, a gateway may provide little protection. Learners should see gateways as powerful tools that contribute to layered defense, but only when paired with disciplined design and thorough oversight. Like all controls, they represent one layer in a broader architecture rather than a solution in isolation. The limitations of gateways become clear when examining common API breaches. If endpoints expose excessive data, or if authorization logic is poorly enforced, attackers can bypass gateway controls altogether. Policies are only as effective as their implementation, and defenders must recognize that gateways cannot compensate for insecure coding practices. Over-reliance on gateways can even create blind spots, as organizations assume their presence solves deeper problems. For learners, this emphasizes the importance of holistic thinking. Security requires alignment across design, coding, testing, and operational layers. No single technology can substitute for comprehensive integration of secure practices throughout the lifecycle. Human and cultural factors remain central to the challenges of application and API security. Development cycles are often rushed, leaving security sidelined in the drive to release features quickly. Gaps in training limit developers' ability to identify or address vulnerabilities effectively, while miscommunication between development and security teams breeds frustration and misunderstanding. These cultural issues create fertile ground for recurring flaws, regardless of the tools in place. Learners should see that sustainable progress in application security demands cultural change. A security-first mindset must be cultivated, where developers, testers, and managers all share responsibility and value secure design as essential to success. For students, the overarching lesson is that application and API security blend technology, process, and governance. Technical tools such as testing frameworks, gateways, and encryption are critical, but they achieve little without collaboration, training, and leadership. Governance ensures alignment across teams, while cultural change embeds security into everyday practice. Continuous vigilance reduces risk but never eliminates it entirely, making resilience and adaptability central to success. Learners should recognize that application security is not a one-time achievement, but an ongoing discipline shaped by evolving threats, user expectations, and organizational priorities. It is a domain where technical acumen and strategic perspective must converge. Balancing innovation and protection is the final theme that ties these lessons together. Users expect seamless, fast, and reliable experiences, while businesses push for rapid deployment cycles to remain competitive. Attackers exploit every exposed gap in these accelerated processes, turning speed against defenders. The only sustainable response is to integrate security directly into innovation through secure design, lifecycle practices, and cultural adoption. Learners should appreciate that protecting applications and APIs does not mean slowing progress. It means enabling progress that can be trusted. Security becomes not a constraint, but a prerequisite for sustainable digital growth, ensuring that innovation delivers value without sacrificing resilience. Thanks for tuning in to Bare Metal Cyber, your trusted source for cybersecurity educational materials, news, and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.